It's starting to become readily apparent that the majority of Australians are a bit sick of being told that Australia Day is bad and that they shouldn't be celebrating it on January 26th. Actually, this constant bashing of Australia Day over the last few years is starting to have the reverse effect. The Institute of Public Affairs, a conservative think tank based in Melbourne, recently published an independent poll asking Australians their views on Australia Day. The results are downloadable from their website. They polled 1,002 Australians with data collected by independent research firm Dynata, asking the question, to what extent do you agree with the following statement? Australia Day should be celebrated on 26th of January. I'll put these results in a chart. In 2024, we can see that 63% of respondents supported Australia Day, while this year we can see that's increased to 69%. All this Australia Day bashing seemingly hasn't worked, which makes sense psychologically. Most people don't like being told what they can and can't do, or what they can and can't celebrate. If you say, you can't celebrate Australia Day, well, expect people to do the opposite, and that seems to be playing out in Australian society. Interestingly, if we look at the data by age group, we can see that young people, 18 to 24-year-olds, are increasingly supportive of Australia Day, 42% last year compared to 52% this year. This means that the majority of all Australians of all age groups support Australia Day being held on January 26th, at least according to this data. Perhaps instead of all this division every year, I think the government, whatever side of politics, needs to hold a national vote to see what Australians really think, to put an end to this debate once and for all. But I know, no matter what happens, there will still be activists who want to do terrible things to this country. I'm a realist. Some people just hate what modern Australia represents. Case in point, Elsa Tuet Rosenberg, self-described she/her. Elsa is a queer, multiracial, Jewish and Chinese woman of colour. Growing up in Naarm, Melbourne. Notice she never mentions the word Australia. In 2017, she established an anti-racism training program. In 2020, she co-founded HUE, an anti-racism organisation, noting she won an award for one of Australia's best LGBT role models and leaders. See, that's how you solve racism, by mentioning skin colour, race and ethnic background at every possible opportunity. According to recent reports, she's been a bit of a naughty girl of late. She's been using her anti-racism skills to incite her followers to do some terrible things. Of course, this has all been since deleted from her social media, but here are some of the screen grabs. It's just over 2 weeks until Invasion Day, Australia Day. Go and play Snatch the Flag, burn them all, destroy colonial monuments, someone go and set fire to Cook's Cottage, go and destroy monuments to colonisation, all of them, chop down their European trees, set fire to their heritage sites, behead their statues, F up their dumb war memorial which glorifies Western imperialism, universities, suburbs, streets, shops named after genocidal colonisers, F them up too. See, anti-racism is pretty easy. Just go around destroying everything and burning buildings down. Remembering that only a few days ago it was reported that a dozen or so masked men, allegedly neo-Nazis, who held a mass deportations now sign over a bridge in Adelaide, will be facing court. They were not violent nor calling for violence, just holding up a sign, but they've been charged. I wonder if this lady will receive the same treatment, in that she's calling for her followers to steal and destroy property, including arson, potentially leading to the injury of others, or worse. She continues, remember kids, it's always okay to resist a colonial force by any means necessary. Again, violent connotations. Toppling statues and burning monuments of genocidal colonisers is the absolute basic bare minimum. It is essentially just a bit of fun. So go out this silly season and have as much fun as you can. And don't forget, charge your grinder batteries and bring your lighters. Is this not bordering on domestic terrorism? Shadow Minister for Indigenous Australians, Senator Jacinta Nampijinpa Price, called out such extremism, Calls for violence on Australia Day should absolutely be condemned. We have seen all too recently in our country what happens when we fail to stop those who would resort to violent forms of activism early on. I would expect the Prime Minister to publicly condemn calls for violence on Australia Day in the strongest terms. What did the Prime Minister have to say regarding Australia Day? Well, the ABC are reporting that PM refuses to bite as Dutton seeks fight on Australia Day events. Basically, opposition leader Peter Dutton has promised that he will force local councils to hold Australia Day citizenship ceremonies and is looking to legislate January 26 as the nation's holiday. As there is a federal election looming and the Prime Minister is trying his best not to offend anyone, a fool's errand if you ask me, when pressed on the issue, he replied, "I will be attending the National Australia Day commemorations as I have done every year in which I have been Labor leader. I hope that Peter Dutton this year makes a choice to join the National Australia Day celebrations in Canberra. That is what I did as the opposition leader." I wonder what anti-racist Ms. Chewett Rosenberg would think of the nation's leader celebrating colonialism. Remember, kids, it's always okay to resist a colonial force by any means necessary. Her words, not mine. Despite all this Australia Day loving rhetoric from the PM, dozens of Victorian councils to ignore Australia Day. More than 30% of Victorian councils will opt to not celebrate Australia Day in any form, including hosting citizenship ceremonies. How dare you want to become a citizen of this country on this country's National Day? You must be some kind of racist. Sydney Lord Mayor Clover Moore has piped in, telling the ABC, "The date of a national celebration should not be on Invasion Day. The dispossession of Australia's First Peoples formally began with the proclamation of British sovereignty on 26th of January 1788. That's why the 26th of January is so painful for so many. It is not a day of unity, but of mourning or survival." And just one more piece of news. The National Australia Day Council, the government-owned not-for-profit which coordinates Australia Day events, and the Australian of the Year Awards, has quietly stripped all mention of British colonisation. So, will you be celebrating Australia Day like flag-waving Albanese, or will you be taking a more nuanced, anti-racist approach and burning the country to the ground? Please don't do that.